Hello guys, and welcome to another project. Today I have a very simple tutorial for React beginner developers, and this is a simple React CRUD application, okay, which is a notes app. Right, so right here is what we are going to build in this tutorial. So of course, nothing here. Of course, we have no notes, but we can click this plus icon and then create a note. Okay, so let me quickly come here and grab something for a title real quick. So we have our title, and we should have something for the details of the notes. Okay, so I'm going to paste that in, and let's save. And here we have our notes. Okay, now you can see the dates of the notes. Okay, this is the date on my laptop right now, and we have the time as well. As you can see, that's the time here. Okay, as you can see, the title of the note was too long, so we have it shortened, and we have this dot dot dot. That means there is more to it. Okay, so of course you can click and then read more about the notes. You can edit the notes. Okay, so quickly I'm going to change the title to my first note, and this is actually persistent to local storage. Okay, we are going to save our data in the local storage of the browser. All right, so we can update the notes, and as you can see, that's the updated title right there, and the time also changed, okay, to the updated time. All right, we can delete the notes as well. We just have to confirm the deletion, and then we can delete. Okay, all right, so let me go ahead and then add another note, and we have some checks. Okay, so we can't add empty title and empty details. Okay, we can't add a note with empty fields. All right, so right here, if I go ahead and then hit save, as you can see, nothing is happening. Okay, I have to add a title, so I'm going to go back here and then grab something as a title. So I'm going to copy that, paste, and I'm going to copy this for the details. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and then save, and right here we have it. Okay, so I'm going to quickly create more notes. There's going to be a title, and I'm once again going to copy something very random for the details of the notes. Let's save, and we have that as well. Okay, so the most recent note comes first. Okay, let's create another one, and I'm going to say my third note. All right, so I just added a few notes, and as you can see, some cool styling that I have in the CSS is kicking in, and we are actually not going to write CSS. Okay, so I'm going to provide you the files, the file for the CSS code that I wrote. Okay, for this, for everything. All right, so that's basically it. And one more thing, we can actually search. Okay, we can search the nodes by the title. Right, so if I start typing, right away our nodes are being filtered. Okay, and let's search page maker, page, and if I misspell something right here, you can see there's no notes matching this keyword. Okay, or the keyword that I'm typing in. Okay, so right here, of course, we can click if we want to make any changes to this particular notes. We can make that changes, and remember there's the page maker including whatever, that's the title of this note. I'm going to change that to wow. I know that's not correct, but just for you to know that that's actually going to change. Okay, so let's save the changes, and right here you can see that changed. Okay, so that's basically it. Of course, we can go ahead and then delete it as well, and right now that's deleted. Okay, as I said, we are going to persist this in the local storage, and that's basically it. Okay, so let's go ahead and then build this notes app. Hey guys, before we proceed, I just want to say I have a very Let me set this real quick. So React.js portfolio website. Okay, so here I'm on Udemy, and I have a course on Udemy. Okay, and in this course we build the best portfolio website that you can find on the internet. Okay, so right here, that's the course, and I'm going to leave a link to this for only $10. Okay, so in this course we build the best portfolio website that you can find on the internet. Okay, so if you need a portfolio website for your projects or for your business, of course you can come to Udemy and then grab this course. As I said, I'm going to leave a link to this particular course, and you can see the ratings here as well. Okay, so my students are really loving the course, and I hope you find it helpful as well. Let's go ahead and set up our hosting and domain name. And having used or having worked with many hosting providers, the one that I always recommend for everyone is Hostinger. Now in the description of this video, you are going to find a link that's probably the first link that's going to bring you to this page, and that's an affiliate link that's going to give you the best deal for your hosting purchase. Okay, so go ahead and then click that link. That's going to bring you to this page, and if you visit this page and the design is a little different, that's because it changes from time to time, right? So there's Hostinger. Let's go ahead and then check out some of the hosting web hosting packages that they have. And right here is their premium shared hosting. Okay, so for only $2.80 per month, you are going to have, or you are going to be able to host 100 websites. They give you 100 gigabytes of SSD storage, as you can see here, free weekly backups. They give you free domain name. How cool is that? For most of the hosting providers, you actually buy the domain name separately. Okay, here they give you a free domain name and a free email as well. So they give you a bunch of other stuff that are very cool and very helpful as well. Right, so this is a perfect deal for me. I'm going to go ahead and then click add to carts, and as I said, make sure you use the link in the description to get the best deal on Hostinger. All right, so this is very affordable, so I'm going to go ahead and then use the 48 months. Okay, and that's going to give me the best deal. And right here I'm going to go ahead and then enter my email. Right, so that's my email. I'm going to use PayPal. As you can see, my total is $133. Okay, now I have a coupon for you. Okay, and this is the best coupon on Hostinger. Go ahead and enter the coupon code EGATOR. Okay, that's right here. Enter that and apply and see what you get. You get 10% discount. So that is a very cool deal, and this is a very reliable hosting. That is why I went ahead and then got you this very important deal. All right, so we are going to go ahead and submit our secure payment. All right, so after the payment, make sure you check out your email to finish up everything, confirm your email and all that. And right here I'm going to go ahead and then log in. So right here I just logged in, and I'm going to go ahead. As I said, they give you a free domain name, so you can go ahead and then claim the domain. Okay, which is really cool. On most platforms or with most hosting providers, you actually have to buy the domain name separately, which will cost you probably $10 or more, right? So the domain name I'm going to buy is dummy EGATOR, and I'm going to use the .com. Okay, so let me quickly check if that's actually available, and it is. Okay, so let's go ahead. As you can see here, that would cost me $14, but here they are giving it for me. They're giving it to me for free, which is really cool. Let's go ahead and then claim this domain name. Yeah, I forgot to mention, but they give us a free SSL as well, so let's go ahead and install that. Yep, and that's installing, and that's going to make sure every traffic on the website is secure. All right, so now let's proceed to work on the project. To begin, of course, you should have Node installed. That's what we are going to use, or we are going to use npm to install some packages, and of course npx to create our React app. Okay, So let's go ahead, and I'm going to create a folder in here called React Notes. That's our project. And let me right click this and open this in VS Code. Okay, VS Code is the text editor I'm going to use. All right, let me zoom this in. Okay, now I'm going to use a terminal, so you can come to, or you can come up here and then open the terminal. And I'm actually going to make this two. Okay, so we're going to have two shells here. All right, so on the left side, I'm going to create our React app. So we are just going to do npx create React app and dot. That means we are going to create our React app in the current folder. All right, so that's done. We can see happy hacking, and that means everything went well. Okay, let me actually close this shell. Let me delete that. Okay, now we could go ahead and then install all the dependencies that we would need for this project, but for the sake of the beginners, I don't want to do that. Okay, I want them to know the use for each package or each dependency. So as we go along, as we need the dependencies, we are going to install them. Okay, all right, so let me clear this console real quick, and we can do npm start, okay, to start our development server. So this is just going to open our project in our default browser. Okay, so right here something is already running on port 3000. That's the demo running, so I'm going to run this on 3001. Okay, so we have our finished project here, and then we have the new one. Perfect. Okay, so we have our projects. Beautiful. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and create our folder structure. Okay, so let's actually delete everything in the source folder. So let me hit delete on that, and I'm going to delete everything in the public folder as well. Okay, so we only need an HTML file, index.html in the public folder. Let's do doc tab, and I'm going to call this React Notes app. Okay, and the only thing we need in the body is a div with the ID of root. Okay, this is where our React app is going to live. Of course, we have some errors because of the files that we deleted, but we are going to take care of that real soon. All right, so that's all we need here in the HTML file, so we can actually close it. Now here in the source folder, we are going to create our index.js file. That's where we are going to link our app component, okay, to the div that we have with the ID of roots. Okay, so let's go ahead and first let's import React DOM. So we are going to import React DOM from React DOM /client. Okay, make sure, come on. All right, so we have that, and we are going to create our root. Okay, so I'm going to make this a constant, and then that's going to be React DOM.create root. Okay, we are going to use this method, and the target is going to be the div with the ID of root in our HTML file, right? So let's use document.query selector, and then select that root div. Right now, it should have a component that's going to be rendered in that root, and so let's do root.render. Okay, we are going to use the render method and then pass in a component right here, and I'm going to call that app. Okay, so we are going to pass in an app component, and of course we don't have that app component yet, so we should quickly create that. I'm going to call this app.jsx. Okay, it is going to be a JSX file. You can make it a JS if you want, there's no problem with that. Okay, and with this extension called right here, ES7 plus React Redux React Native snippets, with this we can do some cool stuff. Okay, so right here I can do RAFCE tab, and I'm going to get this functional component. Okay, so that's a very simple component that we have here, and so we should bring that in, okay, so that this error goes away. All right, so we are going to import that app component from the app file. Save, and everything should be working. So if you go back to our project, I'm going to reload this. We have app, okay, which is coming from this. Okay, that's our app component. If I should change this to hello and then save, as you can see, we have it. Okay, so everything is working perfectly. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and then quickly create all the files and basically the folder structure for the whole project. Okay, and then we can start. First of all, I want to create our CSS file. Okay, and that's going to be index.css. And as I said earlier, we are not going to write the CSS for this project. I want to keep it as short as possible. Okay, so I'm just going to paste in the CSS that I wrote for this project. Okay, you should find a link that's going to take you to a GitHub. Okay, so you can clone this. All right, now let's link this to our project. So we are going to import index.css. All right, so that's our CSS linked. Perfect. All right, so let me actually minimize this. Let me go ahead and then create a folder here called components and another folder called pages. Okay, and for the pages we are basically going to have 3. Okay, so when we go to our finished project right here, you can see we have this notes page. Okay, that's basically our home page. We are going to have a create notes page. This is actually the design for desktop. Okay, so I don't think I showed you that, but yeah, so we are going to have another page, that's the create note page, and then the third page is going to be the edit note. Okay, so that's basically it. So we are going to have 3 pages in our pages folder. So let's quickly create those pages. We have create node.jsx. I'm just going to do RFCE, and we have edit node.jsx, and lastly we have notes.jsx. Okay, here is basically our home page. Of course, in the edit, I'm going to do RAFCE. In the notes too, I'm going to do same. Okay, perfect. All right, so we have the basic structure of our application down. Of course, we are going to create a few more files when the need arises, and that's going to be in the components file. Okay, so we are going to split some files into components, or some of the code into components. Okay, reusable components basically. All right, so I'm going to go into our app.jsx, and here we are going to have the routes, okay, for the pages that we just created. All right, so we need a package to manage our routes, right? And with that, we are going to install this package, that is the React router DOM package, right? So let's do npm install React router DOM. Okay, you can do that save, so that you make sure that is actually added to the dependencies in our package.json file. Right, so that's installed. That was very quick. And now we can use React router in our project. Okay, so let me actually delete this React import, and I'm going to import browser router routes, and then route from React router DOM. And right here, I'm going to wrap everything in our app inside our browser router. Okay, we should have our routes as well, and in here we're going to have the different routes to our pages. Okay, so the first route is going to be let me actually make this a self-closing component. The first route is going to have a path, of just slash, and that's going to be the home page, which is the nodes component, right? So the element that's going to be rendered, or the component that should be rendered, is going to be the nodes component. And make sure that is imported at the top. As you can see here, I have that imported at the top here. I'm going to duplicate this twice. The second path is going to be the create node, and the component that should be rendered there is going to be the create node component. And lastly, we're going to have edit node, and this is actually going to have a parameter. Okay, so we should have this, and that's going to make sure we have dynamic items rendered there. Okay, so that's going to be the edit node component that should be rendered for this path. All right, so we have our path, and we should quickly test that. Okay, so this should be the home page. Of course, because of the CSS, we have this. Okay, so this is the home page, and then we have the nodes as the elements or the components being rendered, right? If we go to create nodes, we have the create node component being rendered, and then we have, and if we go to edit nodes, and then have a random string here, we are going to have the edit node. Okay, as I said, it's going to be dynamic. That's the edit node. It's going to be a dynamic component, or we're going to render items dynamically here. That's why we have this parameter in our path. All right, so let's quickly work on the pages. Okay, and we are going to start with the nodes page. So the idea is to build the look of the pages, right, before we actually add the functionalities. Okay, so starting with the nodes page, I'm going to have a section here, and in here I'm going to have, okay, so let me quickly show you from the finished project. Let's go back, and there's a nodes page that we are going to create. Okay, so we have the head, so basically that's going to have an h2, this button, and then this input as well. Okay, and then we are going to have the nodes itself, which is going to be inside the container, and lastly we are going to have this button. Okay, so those are the basic three elements that we are going to have in here, right? So as I said, we are going to have a header. Let me actually give this a class of nodes header. Okay, and make sure the class matches what I'm typing here, or what is in the CSS. Okay, and that should add the styles automatically, of course. All right, so in this head we are going to have an h2 that says my notes. We are going to have an input with a type of text, and let's give this an autofocus, a placeholder, let's say keyword, and lastly we are going to have a button, and this button is going to have an icon inside of it. Okay, so from the finished project, you can see we have an icon here, and so we are going to go to React icons, this right here. Okay, this is the URL, and you can search any icon on this page. Okay, so I'm going to search a search icon right here. Okay, and I think this is what I used. Okay, so I'm just going to click that, come back to our project, and of course we should make sure we have React icons installed. Okay, that's the package that's going to help us get those icons in our projects. All right, so we are going to install npm install React icons. You can do that, save, and then hit enter. Okay, perfect. We have our icons installed. We should import the icon we copied, okay, to our clipboard from React icons /ci, which is the initials of this particular icon. Okay, all right, so let's quickly put that in here as a component, and then save this, come back to our project, and then see what we have. That should be the notes page, or the home page. Perfect. Okay, so we have that. Okay, we have that icon. So for the button, we are going to have a class name of btn. Okay, we save that, come back to our project, and we have it. Now we are actually going to use a state to manage what should show, either the title or the inputs that we have here. Okay, so later on we are going to add that functionality, but for now let's comment one thing out. Okay, one of them out, and I'm going to comment the input out. Okay, so we have not too bad styling right here. All right, perfect. So let's go ahead and then target the notes container. Okay, and that's going to be a sublink to the header. So let's have a div with a class of nodes container, and in this nodes container we are going to render some dummy nodes for now. Okay, so let me actually create a file here, and you know what, that should be inside our source. Okay, so let's create a file in our source called dummy nodes, should be .js, and I'm going to paste in some dummy array of nodes. Okay, so for each node, of course, it's an object with an ID, a title, a date, and a details. Okay, so ID, title, details, and then date. Okay, so that's for each node that we have in here, and we are exporting this as a default export, right? So we can right away import that in our nodes. So let's import, I'm just going to call this, now let's just do dummy nodes. Okay, from dummy nodes, right? So let's enter JavaScript mode, and then let's map through that. Okay, so we are going to use the map function, call each iteration a node, and then render a new component called nodes item. Okay, of course, since there's a list, we should have a key for it, and that key is going to be the ID. Okay, so node.id. Remember, each object from the dummy node has an ID. Okay, so right here, a unique ID. Basically, we're actually going to use UUID for when we actually create the nodes. Okay, but for now we're just going to use the dummy or the hard-coded IDs that we have. All right, so we should actually pass in a prop, but let's keep that for when we're actually working on the functionalities. So last thing we need here in the nodes page is going to be the add button. Okay, so let's quickly have that, and that's actually going to be a link. That link is going to be from React Router DOM. Okay, so let's import link from React Router DOM. Okay, and down here, that's what we are going to render. So link, we are going to render that. Now it's actually going to have an icon. So let's go back here and search for plus. You know what, I'm just going to type in the actual icon that I used. Okay, so bs plus lg. Okay, save that, and I'm going to give this a class name of btn and another class of add dash dash btn. Okay, or underscore underscore rather. We should make sure this is imported from the React icons library. So let's import this from React icons /bs. We save this, come back to our projects, and we have a problem, right? Node item is not defined. Of course, we should create that. So in our components folder, let's create our node item. Okay, so node item.jsx rafce, come back to our project, and then import that. So let's import node item components node item, right? Save that, and this is what we have. Perfect. All right, and as you can see, we have our plus icon as well. Okay, so the css is also kicking in. All right, so let's quickly go ahead and then work on the nodes item. Okay, and for that we should actually pass in a prop already. We should have a nodes prop that's going to take in the nodes. Okay, where is going to be the object for each iteration in this loop. So here I'm actually going to You know what, let's bring in, or let's accept the prop that we passed in. Let's accept that, and I'm going to destructure it. We're actually going to render a link. Okay, we actually want, from the finished project, we want each node to be clickable. Okay, so as you can see, if I hover over any of the nodes down here, you can see they are links. Okay, so that we can target them and then edit them, right? So let's import link. This is going to be inside the link tag, which is coming from React router DOM, and it should go to, I'm going to use template literal here, edit. Okay, basically it's going to our edit note page, and it should have a unique ID that we can target. Okay, so that we can grab on. And as I said, we are going to use UUID to actually make our nodes very unique. But for now, we are using the hard-coded ID from the dummy nodes. Okay. All right. Now, this link is going to have a class name of nodes, and in here we want to have an h4. For now, we are just going to render the node's title, and below that we are going to have the time, where is going to be nodes.date, or the date and time of the creation of the nodes. Okay, so we save that, come back here, and this is what we have. Not too bad, I guess. Perfect. Now, if I should come to, let me quickly show you something. For the dummy nodes, let me target one of the first. Let me copy a very long title, okay, so that I show you this. I'm going to use this as the title. Save, come back to this, and you can see this title is too long. Okay, so this, if there's 100 or 1,000 characters, it's going to mess up the design of the project. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to use the substring to cut off too long titles, right? So let's go back to our node item right here, and we are going to have a very simple logic for the title that we are rendering here. Okay, so let's say nodes.title. Let's check if the node title is too long. Okay, so that depends on you, right? But I'm going to do 40 characters. Okay, so if the title of the nodes is more than 40 characters, then I'm going to do nodes.title.substring. We are going to show only the first 40 characters of the title. Else, I'm just going to show the node title. All right, so we save this, come back to our project, and we should add some dots. Okay, so that this actually shows that it is a long string. Okay, so we are going to have a plus and then add some 3 dots. All right, so we save that, come back to our project, and since this the long one, we have 3 dots at the end. Okay, we actually have 3 dots at the end of every one of them because they are all more than 40 characters, but you get the idea. Okay, if I should change this to, let's say, 8 characters, as you can see, only this one has the dots. Okay, so that's it basically. All right, so, and with that, you should actually change this to 8 characters as well to match. Okay, and as you can see, we have it. All right, now that's too much. I'm actually going to make this 50. Let's say, yeah, 50 characters is good. It all depends on you, right? All right, so that's all for this node item component. Okay, that's all for this component right here. So I think we are done with the styles. Look a little messed up for some reason. The styles look a little messed up because I forgot that's in our notes app, or actually that's in our app component. Okay, so let's head back to our app component. I forgot to put this in a main tag. Okay, so I have a main with the ID of app. Okay, and that should be wrapped around everything on the page. Okay, so we save that, come back to our project, and now we have this. Okay, so make sure you add that ID right here on the main with the ID of app. All right, so we have the first page done. Now let's move on to, I think there are too many open files, so I'm just going to close them up, and let's move on to the create note page. This page is going to be very simple as well. Let me remove this React import, and here too we are going to have a section with the actually there's not going to have any class or ID, but in here we are going to have a header class of create note header. Okay, and there's going to have two items. The first going to be a link that brings us back to notes page. Okay, so let's have a link coming from React router DOM, right? Of course, that should go to the home page, and that's going to have an icon. Let me quickly write that up top. That's the name of the icon, which is coming from React icons/io. All right, let's have this icon here as a component, and also we should add a class name to this. Okay, so a class of btn. We are going to have a button below that, and let's actually give this a class name of btn, another class of lg, and another class of primary, and this is just going to say save, and that's going to be our save button. So we come to our create notes page, and we have this. Perfect. All right, so let's have the inputs or the form for creating the notes. Okay, so let's have a form with a class name of create note form. We should have our input, and that's going to have the, that's going to be the title, right? So let's give this a placeholder of title. It should be autofocus, and below that we are going to have our text area, where it's going to have the details of the notes. So for the columns, of course, I'm not going to need that, but for the rows, I'm going to make that 28. Let's give this a placeholder as well. Let's say note details. Perfect. All right, and I think that's all for now. Let's save. Remove this. Let's save, come back, and this is what we have. We can go back and all that. Okay, perfect. So of course we can click on the notes to go to the edit page, because each note is inside a link, right? And as you can see, they all have unique IDs down here, but these are hard coded for now. Okay, so that's all for the create notes page. Okay, that's all for this page, and we should move on to the next page, or the last page, which is going to be the edit page, and that's actually going to be very similar to the create note page. Okay, so what I'm going to do is copy this, come to the edit note page, and then paste that. Okay, and of course we should change the create note to be edit note. We only need one button here to delete our note. Okay, so let me actually duplicate this, a danger class, and an icon inside of it. Okay, and this icon is going to be ri delete bin 6 line. That's the name of the icon. Okay, let's make sure this imported. So let's save this and check out our edit notes page, notes/something. We save, and this is what we have. Perfect. So that is all for the edit notes page as well. Okay, and that's all for all the pages that we need for this project. All right, so the next thing we are going to do is to actually add the functionalities to the project. Okay, so let's quickly move on to that. Now I want us to start with creating notes. Okay, so we should be able to, I want us to follow the CRAD acronym. Okay, so we should be able to create notes. After that, by the way, the notes are going to be saved to our local storage. Okay, our browser's local storage, right? So that whenever we come back to our browser, we can actually have our notes saved, right? So that we don't lose them. Okay, since we are not going to use any database. All right, so we will be creating our notes. After that, we are going to read them from the local storage. We are going to be able to update them after that, and then lastly, we will be deleting them. Okay. Now before we work on this file, I want us to go back to the notes.jsx file. Okay, and here I actually want to manage the notes as a state in our app. Okay, now the reason why I'm doing that is because let me quickly show you. Let's go into our app. Okay, so as you can see here, our app component, okay, which is the root component, has access to all the three main components or the main pages of our application. Okay, so that is why I want us to manage that state. Okay, our nodes state here, so that we can conveniently pass props around, okay, to the different components that we have here. All right, so instead of the nodes import, I'm actually going to import that here. Therefore this should actually change, right? Yep. Let's import useState. So as you know, useState returns an array with two elements. Okay, the first being the state value, and I'm just going to call this notes, and the second being the state updating function. Okay, so this is going to be set notes. The initial value is going to be this dummy notes that we have. Okay, and so I'm going to go ahead and pass this notes as a prop to our nodes component. Okay, so nodes is going to be equal to the nodes state that we have here. Okay, so with this we can come back here and then accept that prop. Okay, and as you can see, I'm right away destructuring it, and right here change this to the nodes, and with this everything should be working exactly as it was exactly as before. Okay, perfect. All right, by the way, this is mobile responsive. Okay, let me actually bring it. Yeah, as you can see, there's mobile responsive. Okay, so this is how it's going to look on mobile. Perfect. Okay, so let's move on to actually creating the notes. Now with that, let me close this. Okay, so let's go to the create note page real quick, and here we should be able to pass in a title and the details of the notes, right? And that's what we need to save our notes. Okay, so let's quickly do that. So we should be able to pass in a title, and I'm going to manage these as states. Okay, so I'm going to destructure our, I'm going to call this title and then set title. Okay, so we have our state value and then our state updating function, okay, which is being returned from the useState hook. Okay, and initially the title is going to be an empty string. So we have our title. Let me duplicate this, and we will have our details. Okay, and then set details. That's going to be an empty string as well. All right, now on change of any of these inputs, okay, so we have the text area right here, which is the details, and then a title. On change, I want to get the value that is being typed in and then set it to the state. Okay, update the state with it, okay, with the value that's been typed in. All right, now here I'm going to pass in an anonymous arrow function here, get the event and then set title to be the event target value. All right, so whatever we are typing in this field or in this input should be set. Okay, should be updated, and the title here is going to be updated to that. All right, now we have to pass in that as a value back into the inputs. Okay, so this is going to have a value of the title state. We are going to do the same thing for our details. So on change. All right, now you could argue we should pass in here, but it should actually be here. Okay, there's no problem with that. Okay, so now I want us to be able to submit this. Okay, we want a function that's going to handle the submission of this form. All right, so on submit of this form, we want to call a function called handle submit. Okay, and that's a function I'm going to write up top. Handle submit. It's going to be an arrow function. And the first thing we want to do is to prevent the default submission of forms. Okay, so e.prevent defaults. Here, let me actually just log the title and the details so that we see what's actually happening. Okay, so far. All right, so let's come back to, and we have an error. Create notes is not defined. Okay, so we should pass in the event, of course. Perfect. All right, so let's save this and then see what we get. I'm actually going to, let me refresh this. All right, so we are going to pass in our title. Let's say this is my first title. I know that we have a typo here, but I don't mind. All right, and then let's hit enter. So we should be able to click the button to actually save. Okay, so I'm going to add the event, an on-click event on the save button. Okay, so I'm going to say on click and then handle submit. Okay, so on click of this save button, we want to run this function which is going to handle the submission. Okay, so let's quickly try that out. I save, or I click save, and then I have the title and then the details. Okay, which are the two fields that we have in here, and I hope that makes sense. Okay, so we are getting the title, the details as states, and then we are actually going to create an object out of it, include an ID and a date, and then in turn we are going to save it to the notes array, okay, that we have here. Okay, so that's how we are going to handle that. All right, now let's get back here, and I'm going to handle, or I'm going to add a little bit of form validation. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is check if there's a title. Okay, if the user actually entered a title, there's details. Okay, so I'm going to check if the user really entered a title and something in the details field as well, right? If that's the case, then I'm going to proceed to create an object, else nothing is going to happen. Okay, so in this case, let me just console or log our title and the details in the console, right? So if there's a title and there's a details, then we are going to log this in the console, right? So let's try this real quick. I'm going to refresh the page, and now if I click, you can see nothing is happening. Okay, I've been clicking, I'm clicking, right? But nothing is happening because, or nothing is being logged in the console because there's no title and there's no details, right? But if I should enter something real quick, and this for the details, submit, then we have it. Okay, so that's how I want this handled. And if one is false, then nothing is still going to happen, right? Which is perfect. Remember, these empty strings are falsy values. Okay, that's why we are just checking if they are true. All right, now what I want to do is, of course, as I said earlier, I want to create a new object from the title and then the details, add an ID and then a date as well. Okay, so let's create a note object, and first we are going to have an ID. We need an ID. Okay, so with that, let's actually install a package called uuid. Okay, so I'm going to do npm install uuid. Okay, so hit enter and that should install our package. Okay, and that is what we are going to use to create some unique IDs, right? Okay, so right up top I'm going to import v4 as uuid, and that's going to come from the package we just installed. Okay, perfect. Okay, so here, as I said, I need an ID for each object that I create. So I'm going to execute that function here to create a new ID. I'm going to have the title in the object, the details that is passed in, and then a date. Okay, now we are going to create a hook for this date. Okay, so for now, let's actually just console or log this in the console what we have. Okay, so console.log note. All right, save and let's see. Okay, so let me refresh this again. All right, let's quickly add a title. That's my title, passing some details, save. And as you can see, we have an object with a unique ID, the details, and then the title. Okay, we should add the date, and that's what we are going to do. All right, so I'm going to go into my components. That's probably not where I want to, or that's not the appropriate place to create the hook, but we're just going to create it there for today. So I'm going to create this hook that's useCreateDate.jsx. I'm going to create a function called useCreateDate. That's going to be an arrow function, and let's create our date object. Okay, so I'm going to call this date obj or date object, and that's going to be equal to new date. With this date, let me actually export this. Okay, so let's export this as a default. All right, so with this date object, we have a lot of properties and then methods we can call from this. Okay, from this object, right? Now the first thing I want to get from this is the month. Okay, so and that's going to be equal to date obj.get month. Okay, that's the method we are going to use to get the month of the current date. Now this is going to be a number, so we are currently in January, so this is going to be 0. Start from 0 up to 11, which is December. Okay, so obviously we can't pass 0 as a month, so what we are going to do is use a switch statement to name the month depending on the value, okay, the number that's returned. So let's say let me actually put this in a constant, but here I'm going to have a let and call this month name. It's going to be used in the switch. So let's have our switch statement, and that's going to depend on the month. So if the month is 0, then that means we are in January, right? So we are going to set the month name to January and then break. If the month is 1, then that means the month name is going to be February and then break. So that's what I'm going to do. The next is going to be month name March. All right, so I have all the months as you can see here, and since it starts from 0, we have up to 11, which is December. Right now there's probably a better way of doing this, but at least you know how to do it manually, right? So let's proceed and create the date how you want it. Okay, let's structure the date how you want it. So down here I'm going to create a new constant. After the switch statement, I'm going to create constant here called date, and I'm going to use template literal here. Okay, so first I want the month name from the finished project. Let me show you real quick. As you can see here, we have January 9th 2023. Okay, and the time as well, 9:57. Okay, that is AM in this case. Okay, so we will have the day, or the current date, today's date, and that's going to be the date object. After that, we are going to have a comma, and then we are going to get the full year. So That's going to be date object dot get full year. And lastly, we are going to have the time. Okay, so in this case, that's going to be date object dot and then the minute. Okay, so date object dot get minutes. So down here, I'm just going to return the date that we just created right here. All right, so that's our simple hook, which is going to help us handle our dates. And so let's go back to our create note and import that. Okay, so let's import our create date. Sorry, let's use create date from the components. All right, perfect. Now below this, since this returning the dates, we can just put that into a constant. So that's use create date, execute that since it is a function. And down here, we are going to get the date, right? So we can pass it in here into the object that we are creating. Okay, so let's quickly try that out again. Let's try creating, let me refresh this. All right, so let's say first title for the title, and this is the details for the first title. All right, so let's save this, and now you can see we have the date right here, exactly as we wanted it to look like. We have and that's actually my current date, okay, and time, as you can see here, right? We have the details, we have the ID, which is coming from UUID, which is a unique ID, and then we have the title that we entered. Perfect. All right, so we have the object created, that is the nodes created. So we can go ahead and then push it to the array, which is this array that we have here. Okay, the states that we have here. Okay, perfect. Now this dummy nodes was just for us to see how it is going to look like. Okay, the design. Okay, that was why we had the dummy nodes array. Okay, so we actually don't need this initially. Be this should actually be coming from the local storage. Okay, or it should be an empty array. For now, I'm just going to make it an empty array, but here we should pass the set nodes function. Okay, which is the state updating function. We're going to pass that to the create nodes component that we have here. All right, so that whenever we create a new node, as you can see here, we create a new object, which is a new node. We can update this state. Okay, so what I'm going to do is simply pass in the set nodes as prop. All right, so here in the create nodes, we're actually done with the use create date. Okay, here is this, and yeah. All right, so here in the create nodes, we can right away the structure of that. That's the set nodes coming from the app component, and below this we can go ahead. No, that should actually be inside of the if statement. We can go ahead and then add this nodes to the nodes array. Okay, so let's set nodes, and this should depend on the previous states. Okay, so let's get the previous nodes and then create a new array here. Okay, now whenever we created, that's in the intro, right? Whenever we created a new node, that came first. Okay, so the old ones always came last or were at the bottom. Okay, it doesn't make sense to create a node and then it's going to be at the bottom, right? So we want our nodes that we created, that's the object, we want that to always be first. So let's pass in that, which is the object that we have here. Okay, and then we are going to spread the previous state, okay, from the previous array. All right, so that's the previous nodes. Perfect. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go to my app and log this in the console. Okay, that's the nodes array that we have here. It should be empty by default. I have some errors. Let's see. So create nodes, yeah. All right, so let's save that come here and then refresh this. Perfect, right? And as you can see, we have an empty array which is coming from the app.jsx file. Okay, so we have an empty array as our state for the nodes. And now let's try enter a nodes. Okay, so let's say first nodes title, and let's say this is the details of the first node. Click save, and now you can see we have something in our new array. Okay, now ignore this one which is coming from this create this is the object that was logged in the console, right? But what's important to me is this array. Okay, this state right here. Okay, initially it was empty, but as we added this, as you can see here, we have one object in the array. Okay, of course we have the details, we have the date as well, which is the current date and the time. We have the UUID and then the title as well, which is perfect. Now we should actually empty the field. Okay, once we add a note, we should empty the field, but that's not needed here since we are actually going to be able to redirect. Okay, so after creating the notes, I want us to redirect to the notes page, which is going to show us the notes we just created. Okay, so after creating the notes, let's redirect to home page. Okay, so with the redirection, I'm actually going to use the use navigate hook from React Router DOM. And for this down here, I'm going to put this in a constant. I'm just going to call this navigate and then execute the use navigate hook here. Okay, so down here I'm just going to say navigate and then passing the path. So after creating this and then adding it to the array, we navigate or we redirect to the home page. All right, so let's try this out again. I'm going to refresh this page. All right, so first title, just going to enter something random, save, and as you can see we have it. Okay, perfect. Now if I come back here and then refresh this page, that's the home page. Although we just added something, we lose everything. Okay, so as you can see, there's nothing here, and that's because we are not persisting our data or we are not saving our data into our local storage. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is to use the use effect hook. Since saving something in the local storage is a side effect, we are going to use the use effect hook, and let's have our function here. And for the dependency array, I'm going to say whenever the node's state changes, I want this use effect function to, or the function in the use effect to rerun. Okay, so here I'm just going to save this in a local storage. I'm going to say set item. Let's call this nodes. Since we can save an array, we have to make this a JSON string. So I'm just going to say json.stringify and then pass in the nodes array. All right, so with this, when we come back, and you know what, let's actually just fetch it from, that's the nodes. Okay, initially when we come back to the page, we shouldn't have an empty array. Okay, we should have the nodes saved in the local storage, right? So here I'm going to say first we have to pass it. Okay, it's going to be a JSON string when it's coming from the local storage, so we have to pass it. So I'm going to say json.pass and then local storage.get item. We called it nodes. Let me quickly explain this well. So we are getting the nodes that we saved in the local storage, right? And since there's a string, we should pass it using json.pass. And if there is nothing, then we are going to have an empty string instead. Okay, so that's just what I'm doing here, which is very, very basic. All right, so we save this, come back to our browser, refresh, and I'm actually going to open my local storage here, and as you can see, there's an empty array here, right? So let's go ahead and then add a note. This should take us to our notes, create note page. So why is that not happening? Let's go to notes, and this should take us to create note, right? All right, so we click. This is the title of my very first note. That's the title. And for the details, I'm just going to say this is the details of my first note. And let's save. And of course, we have it. Okay, which is perfect. And as you can see here, we have that saved in the local storage. Okay, so in this case, when I refresh the page, or even when I close the browser and then come back, I'm still going to have that notes. Okay, and as you can see, that persisted to our local storage, which is perfect. All right, so we are done with creating our notes. Okay, we are done with creating our notes. The next thing we want to do is to actually update this. Okay, so let's move on to that. Now, to edit the notes, users should click on the node they want to edit, right? So that they can be taken to the edit page. Okay, so let's click this real quick. And right here, we've been taken to the edit page. Okay, and notice we have a unique ID for each of the nodes, right? So based on this ID, right, we are going to use the useParams hook from React Router DOM to fetch the node that has the ID. Okay, so that we display it here, we change it, or we change it however we want, and then we can save it or update it. Okay, so let's go to our edit nodes page, and right here we should fetch that node. Okay, so here in the app.jsx, we should be passing in our nodes array, and also let's actually pass in the state updating function as well, the set nodes as props. Okay, we are passing these in as props, so we are going to receive them here on the edit node page. Okay, so nodes and then set nodes. Perfect. All right, so what I want to do is to fetch the node that we want to edit, okay, based on the ID. All right, so here I'm going to bring in useParams from React Router DOM, and I'm going to use that to get that ID. So I'm just going to say const ID is going to be equal to useParams. That should be executed. Perfect. So right now, if I should log that in the console, so console.log ID, let's save that and then see what happens right here. Okay, so you can see this right here matches what is in the URL. So let's go ahead and then based on the ID, we find the nodes object from the nodes array. Okay, so first and first, I want to have a node constant here, and I'm going to find, and there's an ES6 method. Okay, so we are going to use the find method. Let me just call this item, and we are going to check if the ID of the current object is equal to the ID that is coming in from the params. Okay, that's in the URL. So if that is the case, then that object, okay, so the first true that we get is going to be returned and set as the note that we have here as the constant. Okay, so we get that, and we can get our title and then set title. We are going to make those, we are going to take care of those as states, with the initial value being what is saved in the local storage or the actual object, right? So that's going to be note.title. Okay, so let me actually duplicate this, and this is going to be details, and then set details, right? and that's going to be node.details. Perfect. You know what, let me just log this in the console so that you see what's happening. That's the note. Okay, so let me log this in the console, and as you can see, we have the ID, right? And we have the details, the title and all that. Okay, the time as well. Now we can actually add a few more. I'm just going to write something very random as the title here, and this is going to be the details. Save that, just so we have some unique notes to work with, right? So if I should click, and this is the current time, as you can see here, I'm doing this at midnight. Okay, so if I should click this, we're going to have a different value, as you can see here, right? So we get those, and we are going to display them in the form. Okay, we want to have the values in here, okay, in the form, so that we can change it around and then save it back or update it. All right, so let's go back, and in the input here, the value of this is going to be, that's the title, right? We want to get the event, and then say set title should be the event target value. All right, we are going to do the same thing. So the value here is going to be the details. We'll have an unchanged prop as well, and that's going to be the event. Let's get in the event, and set details is going to be the event target value. All right, perfect. So if we come back to our project, we should let me rephrase this real quick. Okay, yeah, we should have that. Okay, so the values are being passed in. All right, so right here. Okay, if I go back and select this, we are going to have the values passed in right here. Perfect. Okay, so we can go ahead, change the title, for instance, to whatever we want. I'm just going to say whatever we want, and notice for each change we actually logging this out. So what is going on? Let me remove this. Okay, and then refresh so that we don't okay, so I'm just going to say whatever we want, but now if I save it, nothing is going to happen because we don't have anything for saving the changes. Okay, so let's go ahead and then create a function for that. I'm just going to call this handle change. Okay, so now let me just call it handle form. Okay, this is going to be an arrow function. I'm just going to prevent the default submission of the form. Okay, so e.prevent default. All right. Okay, so just like we did for the creating of the notes, I'm going to check if there is a title and there is something in the details as well. Okay, so of course we can remove everything in those fields, so we should make sure we have these checks, okay, so that people don't submit empty forms, right? So if that's the case, if these are true, then we are going to create a new object, and let me call this new notes. So with this object, one thing you can do is actually spread the previous state. Okay, so that's the nodes that we have. You could spread that just like this, and then you make the changes. Okay, so in this case we just want to change the title and the details. Okay, you could do this, or you could create a whole new object, right, and pass in the ID, which is going to be the ID that you pulled out from the URL, the title, the details, and then even use the custom hook that we created to create a new date as well, so that the updated date also gets added. Okay, so it depends on you what you want to do, right? And I think the second one is what we are going for. So I'm actually going to create a new date, and we are going to use the use create date. hook that we created. Let's just add that here. All right, so perfect. We have that. We have a new note, so we can go ahead and then map through our notes array so that we can update it with the new object that we just created. I'm going to call this new notes, which is plural, and that's going to be equal to our notes array that we have as prop, and we are going to map through that. Okay, so let me just call each iteration an item and check if the item ID is equal to the object that we have. That's the object with the parameter in the URL. Okay, so if that's the case, then we have our object, so we can change that to the new note that we just created, or the new object that we just created. And right here we are going to return the item, which is all we need to do. And right after the iteration, we go ahead and then set the notes, that's the notes array, to the new notes array that we just have. Okay, the updated new notes array. All right, so that's all we need to do. And remember, we are pulling the state updating function as prop here, so we use that to update our notes. All right, so we save this, and right after we do this, we should actually navigate programmatically to the notes page so that we see the updates that we have. Okay, so let's redirect to home page, and the home page is the notes page. Okay, so let's navigate. Nope, let's actually bring in use navigate from React router DOM, right? And down here I'm going to create a constant called navigate, so we can say navigate and then pass in a URL or a path. Okay, so we save this and let's try this out. Okay, so this is the code that we wrote. That's all we need for this to happen. All right, let me actually go back and select whatever. I'm going to select this and then just change the top the title to this is my second note. I know there's a typo here, but let's ignore that. We save. All right, nothing is happening because we did not add that function. This function is not being called anywhere, or it's not being executed. Okay, so on click of the save, we should call the handle form, which is going to save and do all that we wrote. Okay, and let me actually add an on submit on the form as well, handle form. All right, so we save this, come back, and now if I save, we actually update our notes. Okay, we can do same for this. So for instance, I'm just going to type in a bunch of W's as the title, save, and we have it. Okay, remember the notes date is also getting updated. Okay, which is what we actually wanted. If you want, of course, the newly updated note should come first. Okay, so you should figure out how to do that. It's not going to be difficult. It's actually a very simple trick that you have to use, and that's going to work. Okay, all right, so now we can actually update our notes. Okay, we can update our notes. So the next thing we need to do is to go ahead and delete notes. Okay, so back in edit, we are going to handle, remember that is also on the edit page. Okay, right here, so we are going to handle that here on the edit page as well, and that's actually going to be very simple. I'm going to create a function here. I'm going to call that handle delete. That's going to be an arrow function. I don't know if the fonts are too small, but that's all right for now. We've come this far already. So, and in here, what I want to do is to create a new notes array. Okay, so we are going to filter from the notes that we have, the notes array that we pulled in as prop. Okay, we are going to filter that. So notes.filter, we are going to use that ES6 function. We just don't want the notes with this ID, this current ID, to be included in the new array that we are returning. Okay, so that's just what you have to type here, and then we are going to set our notes, or we are going to update our notes using this state updating function to the new notes array that we have. Okay, and right after, we are going to navigate to the notes page, which is the home page. All right, so we save this, and of course we should have this is the delete, right? So we should have that function on here. So on click of the delete button, we should call handle delete. All right, so we save this, come back to our project, and of course right here there's the www. I'm just going to click on this delete, and as you can see, it is deleted. We can refresh and it is actually gone. Okay, so if I should delete this as well, that's also gone. All right, now the last thing we want to do is to actually search our notes. Okay, so in case we have too many notes here, we want to be able to search. All right, so remember, creating this home page or this notes page, we had an input here, right? And right now it cannot be found because we hid it. So what we are going to do is to actually use a state. Okay, so here is our input, and we are going to use a state to actually hide it and show it on click of this search button. Okay, so let's actually do that right away. Just show search and set show search. Okay, and that's going to be use state, and initially it's going to be false. And right here I'm going to say if the search is true, or if the show search state is true, then that should be actually if it is false. Okay, so if the show search state is false, then we want to show this title. Okay, and this is my notes title that we have here. And if it is true, then we want to show the input rather. All right, so for this to work, I'm going to add an on-click prop on our button. Okay, or our search button right here. Okay, I'm going to add the on-click prop to that, pass in a function previous state, and we are going to return the opposite of the previous state. It should be like this instead. Okay, you could actually just have the opposite of show search, just like this, but since this actually depends on the previous state, it's best to actually write it this way. All right, so we come back, and now we can toggle our inputs. Okay, so perfect. Now we want to be able to get what we are passing in this input. Okay, so let's manage that with a state. All right, so we are going to call this text and set text as the state updating function. That's going to be use state. Initially it's going to be an empty string, of course, and let's pass that in here. That the value is going to be text, and on change we are going to have the passing the event, and then set text to be e.target.value. And also we are going to have another state for the filtered nodes. Let me have set filtered nodes as the state updating function, and initially that's going to be the nodes that we are getting from the app.jsx. Okay, that's the nodes that we are getting from the local storage. Okay, that's going to be the initial value. Okay, map through that instead. Okay, so I'm just going to change this to be the filtered nodes array, or the state that we have here. Perfect. All right, so to handle this, we are going to filter through the nodes. That's the original array that we're getting from the app.jsx. we are going to filter that. So if the note, and we are only going to search using the titles of our notes. Okay, so if the note title, and I'm going to use this to lowercase, okay, just so we are on the same page. We are actually going to convert what we are typing into lowercase as well. All right, so that they are case insensitive, okay, when searching. All right, and I'm going to use the match method to actually handle this. Okay, so if that matches the text that we are texting in, and that's going to be to lowercase as well. If that matches, or if there is a match, then we can return that note, that particular iteration. Okay, perfect. All right, and remember we are using the filter method here, not the find, because what we are typing in can actually match multiple notes. Okay, and the filter method returns an array, or returns a new array, right? Whilst the find returns the first match of the elements. And that's all we need to do. Okay, so on change of this, I'm actually going to handle this a little differently. On change, I wrap these in curly braces. Okay, so on change, I handle the state or the text to what we are typing in, and also right after I call the handle search, right? Oh, of course, we should execute our function. Okay, since we are passing in a function, we should make sure this actually executed. All right, so we save this. Let me refresh this, and let me quickly add a few notes. Okay, so let me actually let's go back to our lorem ipsum page and grab something as a title. They should be fine. Come back here, paste that, and for the details, I'm just going to grab this. Let's save that. So we have a note, of course. Yep. And let's create another one. Just going to copy something random here. Come back, paste that as the details, and then copy something from here as the title, right? Paste, save, and we have that. Let me create some more, okay, just so we have some dynamic. That's actually enough. Okay, so for every type, or for every press that we make on our keyboard, we need to run this function. Okay, and we are going to use the use effect hook for that. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I'm sorry if I'm not really explaining things well, but I just hope I'm making sense here. Okay, so for every key press that we make, we need to use the use effect hook, okay, to call the search handle search function. All right, and the dependency array is going to be the text that we are typing in. Okay, so for every change in the text, which is the input, then we are going to use the use effect to run the handle search, which is this function. All right, so we save this, come back to our project. Yep. Now if we search college, for instance, you can see CO can be found in two of our nodes. Okay, if I should proceed to, okay, so this one, college in Virginia, whatever, so this is actually a problem. Let's search another thing. Okay, so there's a mismatch, that's why they both disappeared, right? And let me search Latin, for instance. Okay, so Latin, and this updating live. Okay, there's a hot update, right? As soon as I type in and there's a match, you can see the nodes actually match, and if there isn't a match, then they disappear. Okay, so if I type something random, you can see this search is really impressive. Now with this toggle, if I click and I show the input, I should change this to all. I want to change this to be a close icon. Okay, so let's get back here to our icon searching page, and I'm going to search close. And you can use any icon that you want, but I'm going to use this one. So let's import that from React icons, and right here in our button we are going to check if the using the state, right, that's the show search state. If that is true, so show search. If it is true, then we want to show the close. Okay, if not, then we are going to show the search icon instead. All right, so now this should be working. Okay, and I think we actually have a problem. There's an SVG, I think. So let's actually change this icon. I'm just going to type in what I used. Okay, so let me go back, or maybe, yeah, I'm just going to type in what I used. That's the name of the icon, MD close, and that's coming from MD. Perfect. So now it should be white. Perfect. All right, so we can show and then hide inputs. All right, so let's add a few more, or let me actually handle one of the let me handle editing this. So I'm going to enter SS or SD, whatever, just so we see this actually what we are changing. Okay, so I hit save, and as you can see, that's been changed. Okay, and let's actually delete this as well. I hit delete. Now one thing to delete, I want to have a confirm. Okay, I want our users to make sure they are not deleting the wrong note. So in here I'm going to say if window.confirm, and the message is going to be, are you sure you want to delete? Okay, so if they confirm the deletion, then we proceed to actually do this. All right, let's hit save, come back to our project, and now take note of this title. I'm going to go ahead and delete it, and now I have this prompt. Okay, so if I hit cancel, nothing happens. We come back, you can see we have it, but if I go ahead and hit OK, then it is actually deleted. All right, so we are completely done with our project. Okay, what I'm going to do is to add a few more. All right, so we add this as well, and that's it. Okay, all right, so we can go ahead and then, for instance, update this. Okay, so another day, another bag. Of course, we can go ahead and update that, and let's say nothing is worth more than a clean code. We update, and you can see we have that updated. All right, so everything is working exactly as we want. We can go ahead and search. Okay, so let's say okay, so as I type, you can see MA is only in this. Okay, so we have M in most of these, but MA is only in this title. Right, if I should search I don't know, if I should search PA, or I want something that's in most of the notes. Okay, so let's see CO. Okay, so CO can be found in a lot of them, and let's say D, then we can see we have only one. And if I type something and there is no match, I want to show a message here that no notes found. Okay, so what I'm going to do in the notes app is down here. I'm going to right? And I'm going to check if the filtered notes has a length of 0. Okay, so filtered notes dot length. If that's equal to 0, then there's no match, or we have no notes. So if there's no notes in the local storage as well, this message is going to show. All right, so I'm just going to render a paragraph tag and just say no notes found. Okay, I actually have a class for this, so let's add that, and that's empty notes. Okay, so we save this, come back, and you can see that note. Okay, so if I start deleting to match some notes, you can see that message disappears because now there is a match. All right, now let's go ahead and deploy our website. Okay, so right here in my packet.json file, I'm going to add a home page. So since we have the SSL, that's going to be https egator.com, right? Let's save this file, and in our terminal we are going to run npm run build. Okay, and this is going to build our project for deployment. All right, so we are going to have a production ready application to deploy. Perfect, so everything is done, and as you can see here, we have a build folder, and that's what we are going to deploy. All right, so log into your hosting account, and right here I'm going to click business web hosting, and make sure you select the domain, okay, that you are going to upload or deploy the project on. All right, so I'm going to go to file manager, go into public, and as you can see here, we have a default file. You can go ahead and then just delete that, we don't need it. And I'm going to drag and drop our folder in here. Okay, so the build folder that will be just created using npm run build. All right, so that's it. I'm just going to drag and drop that in here. Perfect. Now I'm going to select everything inside of that and then move it into the public HTML. Okay, so I'm going to move that. That's going to go into the public HTML. All right, so now there shouldn't be anything in the build folder, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete that as well. So our website is live. Okay, so let's visit the website, EGATOR.com, and as you can see, we don't have anything here, and that's because this URL is different. Okay, so if I check the local storage right here, we don't have anything. Okay, so it's a different URL, that's why. All right, so let's add something. Okay, so this is my first note, that's the title. I'm just going to say description for the first note. Let's save that, and we have it. Okay, I'm going to add a few more. You know what, everything should work exactly the same, right? Let's try our search, of course. As you can see, perfect. So everything is working exactly as expected. Let's try updating this, my second note. Of course, it's working, and let's try deleting them as well. Okay, so we confirm the deletion and it's working. All right, so that's it for our project. Thanks for watching, and I'm going to see you in the next one. Peace. Hello guys, and welcome to this course where we are going to build and deploy a modern responsive React.js portfolio website with theme customization feature using React 18 and CSS 3. Throughout this course, you will use some React hooks like the useState hook, the useRef hook, the useEffect hook. We will be using the context API together with the useContext hook for consuming our context value. We will be using the useReducer hook, which is mostly going to be used when we get to the theme customization setting or feature. You will know how to use React portals. We will also be creating some custom hooks to make our lives easier. We will be creating some reusable components. You will know how to use simple contact options on your website You will be creating carousels with Swiper.js. You will learn how to create scroll review effect during this tutorial. You will learn how to create filterable portfolio or projects. Now, as you are going to see in a minute, this website is going to be mobile responsive. So you'll learn how to create modern mobile responsive elegant websites using CSS. Now with CSS3, we have variables. So we are going to use variables in this tutorial, which is going to help us with the theme customization as well. And it's also going to help us prevent repeating ourselves. You'll be learning how to position elements on your website using CSS. You will be learning how to use the flexbox and the grid system to align elements on your web page. Now we will be using the media queries to make our website responsive. Okay, we will be creating some breakpoints for different devices to make our website responsive on mobile phones, tablets, and desktops. Since we want to achieve a very responsive website, we will be using some CSS units like the rem unit, percentage, viewport height, and then viewport width unit, which are very good when it comes to building responsive websites. Also, we are going to design an elegant floating nav for tablets and mobile phones for this website.